Today I'm going to show you guys Dylan Jaeb's lazy flick technique. The other week I saw Dylan Jaeb post this on his story. It's him doing basically a rapid fire switch flip to a fakie flip to a switch flip with like no pause in between. And you can see he's like barely jumping, like barely putting any effort into it. And me being kind of like old and fat, not able to like jump very high, I thought to myself, what if there's something about this technique that I could use? Because last summer I learned how to nollie flip. I did one like that was actually pretty proper. And since then I haven't been able to land another one. So I went down the rabbit hole, looked up a whole bunch of clips of Dylan Jaeb doing regular kick flips, regular fakie flips, regular nollie flips, switch flips, and then compared them to this like lazy version of all those tricks to try and find what was the difference between his normal pop, super jumpy, elevated kick flip versus the super low to the ground, lazy type flick. So in this video, I'm going to show you what the technique is and then how I ultimately used it to work on my nollie flips. So the first thing we're going to look at is just how Dylan Jaeb does his regular popped kick flip, the non-lazy way. So he puts his front foot right about here and his back foot back kind of in the center of the tail. But the main thing I noticed is that with most people, including Dylan Jaeb, for a regular kick flip, they put their weight along this line that I have cut in the grip tape. So if you imagine between these bolts, there's like a line. That's the most stable part of the board along that axis, right? Because it's right over the trucks. So for a standard kickflip, he's pretty over the top of the board. And you notice he jumps up really high. He really gets that pop, waits for the board to come up before he actually goes ahead and flicks it. So he's got that jump, pop, pause, and then he's gonna drag his foot up and then out. So every movement is kind of separated to get the most out of each movement to try and get the highest, most tweak, most caught, most controlled kickflip as possible. Very precise, very powerful. But then if you look at his foot positioning on the lazy flicks, he's got his foot pretty much right here by the bolts with his whole foot like hanging off, just with a little bit of his foot on the board right there. And we talked about this in Nigel Houston's kickflip video. When you have your foot right here, essentially all you have to do is flick straight to that corner. You're pretty much, all you gotta do is just kick, right? So this really is like the laziest foot placement. You're not gonna get an insanely pop or elevated kickflip from this foot positioning right here, but it is going to be quick and it's going to be simple and it's going to be fast. But the problem with this foot positioning is obviously if you press, on this corner, what that's gonna do is you're gonna start tilting the board and you're gonna be carving out of control. So to combat the fact that he's putting his foot way over here, he puts his other foot way over here in the other pocket. Like in some of the clips, you'll notice he's even hanging his toe off of the edge of the tail like that. Now what this does is not only does it help to counterbalance the fact that you have your foot way over here and keep you from falling over this way, what it does is as you pop, you'll notice that my board wants to turn to the side like that. You see how it's elevating this side of the board? So I talked about this in Ashad Ware's heel flip, that Ashad Ware pops his heel flips extremely off of the corner like this to try and elevate this area of his board. So that way he can get a cleaner flick and he's making contact with just the edge. This is the part of the board that if you flick it, you're gonna get the easiest, quickest flick. So Dylan pretty much does that technique, but for his kick flips and his nollie flips, fakie flips, all that with the lazy version. So rather than putting his foot in the center, he puts his foot out here. He elevates this side of the board right here. So that way he can get a even faster and quicker flick off this corner of the nose or the tail, depending on what trick he's flicking. So not only does he have his foot, right here where he really doesn't have to do much to actually get that flick in that corner, but he's also elevating that edge of the board. It's almost like you take everything that makes Dylan Jaeb's proper kick flips, like the ones that are super high, super tweaked, and you just do everything completely opposite. Rather than like popping and waiting for the board to elevate before you flick to get that height, you pretty much just like pop and flick as close together as possible. And because you're getting that edge up and your feet are like so in extreme foot positions, even with the faster timing, you can still get the board around. So even with, flicking the board really fast, you still do need to jump. This doesn't eliminate, my weakness for jumping because I'm old and fat. So when I went to the skate park to test this, the first thing I did is just get comfortable popping nollies. I went all around the park, out of the bank, out of the Euro, the hip, off the drop, flat ground, up a curb. You still need to obviously jump. Doesn't matter, you know, how good you flick if you don't jump at all. You can't get above the board, you're not gonna land the trick. And I acknowledge that although I'm trying to compensate for my weakness of jumping with this Dylan Jaeb lazy flick, I can't ignore that, you know, completely. So I made sure to get a bunch of nollies in. But then once I started trying the nollie flips, you'll see I really get the edge of my toes over to, you know, the edge of the nose on my front foot. I don't have them completely hanging off like some of Dylan Jaeb's nollie flips. He's got his toes completely hung off the side of the tail. That just, I don't think I have the board control or like balance or stability to have that extreme of a foot position, but I definitely was getting my foot over. Now I did notice immediately getting that pressure on the toe side of the nose did definitely help lift up the heel side of the tail, so it really did get that flick. But then it still came back to I had to figure out how to stay over my board. After about 16 attempts, I was able to get this one. The board definitely didn't level out, but you can see that I barely jumped at all, and I got the flick just in the right spot. And even with no pop and a very, you know, little jump, I was able to get the board to flip completely over and land and roll away. But like I said, with this foot positioning, it does simplify the flick. It makes the flick a lot easier. I feel like it makes it harder to pop though. I almost feel like it's less stable, so you're not able to channel as much energy down into the board. But the longer I tried it, the more it kind of made sense. I kind of figured out how to make it work, and then after another 8 tries, half of what it took me the first time, I was able to get this nollie flip. This one's a little bit more pop. I at least like clicked the nose, got it around. It's still rocket, but I don't know, whatever. Not the prettiest thing. I'm not Dylan Jaeb, but I do think that this technique does work. It's definitely a challenge to make it look good, but probably wouldn't recommend like actually doing your nollie flips like this. I would much rather see Dylan Jaeb's normal like super popped and tweaked nollie flips than this one. But it's just like different aspects of board control, and Dylan Jaeb can do it all. Also, you see Shane O'Neill and Dylan Jaeb both use this technique for their switch flip back tails. Maybe this isn't like the most fundamentally sound technique, but in certain circumstances, I'm sure there's applications to it. So go ahead and try it for yourself. See if it helps you with your nollie flips. It might help you with your nollie backside flips. And if you want to see Dylan Jaeb in one of the videos, comment down below W Dylan. He actually commented on this video I made about his frontside flip. So if you like this video, check that one out. And yeah, comment W Dylan, and so that way you guys can hear the master explain his techniques. But remember to make every single day a Friday, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.